And welcome back to ABC News Live. Well, top Department of Defense officials, our military brass, getting ready to resume testifying to Congress on the U.S. withdrawal of Afghanistan. As we wait for that to start live there on Capitol Hill, let's bring in ABC News national security and defense analyst and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, Mick Mulroy, also former U.S. Army Ranger Jericho Dedman, for more on this while we wait for it to start. Jericho, let's start with you. You know, you were an Army Ranger. You have been in country during both wars. You've been following what's been happening here on the Hill. I'm just curious, after yesterday and the back and forth of what military leaders were saying about keeping troops in Afghanistan versus what the president had publicly said on our network, that there was a contradicting, I guess you should say, what military leaders are saying. What are other men and women saying to you after yesterday about what they heard and observed as someone who was involved in the tactical fights there overseas?
For us, it's just another chapter in the same story of different chains of command, different administrations kicking this can down the road, and then renaming or reframing the parameters of success, and then saying we've turned a new corner every year or two. So for me and for us, it was highly disappointing and showed the level of scrutiny and the level of attention that's being paid to Afghanistan by every administration who's been in the chair since the war started.
What did you not hear yesterday that you want to hear today?
I would like to hear a lot less about the evacuation that, encompassed 17 days, give or take, of the entirety of this war. And I want to talk more about 20 years of again, every administration, every chain of command kicking the can around the corner and just, hoping that it would go away.
Mick, as they gavel in, what do you want to hear today that you didn't hear yesterday?
So I want to hear exactly what Jericho just said. Yes, the evacuation is worthy of reviewing, but the 20 years of war there is more worthy of the time. I think we need to spend a lot of time talking about what we did right, and what we did wrong, and why we didn't keep a residual force there to preserve everything we fought for. And I think that's going to be the main part of today. I also think they're going to talk about how we're going to conduct counterterrorism operations there in the future. I spent over 2 years on the ground fighting and conducting counterterrorism operations there, and I can tell you it's going to be very, very difficult. And I think the generals have proven that they're very blunt when it comes to their assessment of the future, and we really need to get into how we're going to be able to conduct this and how we're going to be able to keep our nation safe.
And just put that in perspective. You don't have CT efforts and good intel. We could easily see another 9/11 with the Taliban now in control, Mick. That makes it very difficult for us, especially with no boots on the ground there, to know what's happening, to know what's thriving there, to know about extremist groups and jihadists that are able to flourish and be protected. So going forward, what do you want to hear from the questions with regard to how military brass will deal with CT, with counterterrorism, and trying to prevent the growth of extremists in a country that they just flourished 20 years ago?
Well, that's exactly right, Kara. So the real question is going to be, what are you going to do to make up for the lack of intelligence collection on the ground? We had an extraordinarily complex network of collection that we had there. It's now completely dissipated. It doesn't matter if you have all the most sophisticated planes in the world if you don't know what you're shooting at, quite frankly. So they're going to have to explain what we're going to do to try to recreate that, either in pockets of resistance inside Afghanistan or the neighboring countries. It's going to be very complicated. They have to figure out a way to do it the most effectively. I just hope it's effective enough to prevent, which we know is going to happen. Terrorist groups are already there, and their whole purpose for existing is to attack the West. And they're going to try.
Right. Mick and Jericho, let's see if we get our questions answered. They have begun. Let's listen in. We'll talk on the flip side.